Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
This morning, for those who don't understand, when you do a podcast, I'm generally about 3 months out, meaning what you're hearing today, I recorded a ways ago. But this morning, I was on a program out of Estonia, Marlies Vaher, someone I've gotten to know through the wonder of Zoom and LinkedIn. It's just amazing to have these conversations. And a friend of mine, Terry Bean, who I've known for years, who lives in a different part of the United States, we just got together and we were talking about building trust and marketing and relationships and all those sorts of things. And to me, it's interesting because here I'm at the end of the day and I am having a conversation with somebody very similarly situated in Australia. And, for me, many times I think of, well, it's the Eastern Hemisphere. It's all one little tiny little band, and actually Eastern Hemisphere is huge. It's actually, there's more in the Eastern Hemisphere than there is in the Western Hemisphere when you start looking east to west. But today, this afternoon, I've got on the program with me Derek Morgan, and he's an expert in referral marketing, and he helps B2B entrepreneurs grow without relying on ads or cold outreach, which I am a total fan of. He's the founder of Referral Marketing Ideas and head of affiliates at referit.ai, and he simplifies relationship-driven strategies for sustainable growth. And you know what? I think relationships is where it's at. Cold outreach is not scalable. Relationships are totally scalable. And so today he's going to share with us actionable insights to unlock referral marketing's full potential. Derek, welcome.
Thanks, Frank. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, this is good. We've known each other probably 6 months, maybe longer, and we're just going. I don't know what I should have asked you a long time ago, but it was like there was an exchange. It's like I've never asked him on my program. I think we just get busy, and sometimes the time difference. I'm talking to you. It's late Tuesday afternoon, and it's very early Wednesday morning.
6 a.m. Wednesday morning, yeah.
Yeah, so you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So I guess give us your story. How did you, I think we're all we call it high school here or college. We're all about learning, right? Learn. That's the path to success. Relationships never really come into that conversation. And at some point, we all have this, well, not we all, but people like you and I have this epiphany. They're like, well, wait a minute here. I can only learn so much. There's only so many hours in the day. How do I make better use of this?
Yeah, Frank, guilty as charged. I mean, I'm only just now, I won't say only just now, but in recent years, I've started to really focus on implementing things that I learned 30 years ago. Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
So being that habitual learner, it was always like everybody, the marketplace, coming back to your comments around how busy and noisy it is, everybody's got this new idea that it's the new big thing and you should be learning it. So you get into this habit of just constant learning as opposed to learn and execute. It's like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's go actually execute on what I've just learned and actually get the value out of it, as opposed to like, oh, yeah, another new thing. I've got to go back into learning mode. So I found myself consuming a huge amount of information that I wasn't executing on. Now I'm going back and actually executing on some of the things that I learned. But back to your question of, how did I get here? I've been one of those people in the past that has changed jobs every 4 years. Like I seemed to have been on a cycle, but when I say change jobs, it was change industries, which meant changing networks, which meant learning an entire new language from an industry perspective. So I found myself in this habit of just changing industries, and then every time you changed industry, you had to build new networks, you had to build new connections because it's a different people ecosystem that you're working with. So yeah, had to get good at building relationships across multiple different industries and services and technology and financial services. So yeah, fell into networking by necessity.
Well, now, I mean, networking is one of those agnostic things that really covers everything. So now you're kind of in a position where you can go back with some of those old contacts, even though you're not in the industry, you have value you can bring to those people. My sense
Yeah,
of it
well,
is,
I mean, yeah, I'd be interested to get your perspective on this, but principles and strategies around networking are they're fundamental. They don't change drastically. People are people. Yeah, we've got all this technology that changes, or we've got all these, butterfly marketing tactics that are hot now, but fizzle out relatively
yep,
quickly. But you know, people and human connection and networks are principle and strategy driven in my mind, and therefore it is your one consistent marketing process or growth strategy that you can implement regardless of what algorithms are doing or what the next ad fad is, right? So it's within your control to actually have at least one pillar of a growth strategy in your business that you can execute on at will, and that's how we review. That's how I perceive referral marketing versus most businesses just getting referred leads organically by osmosis, right? Because they don't have a system or a process for actually turning on the tap and getting those referred leads. They're coming, they don't know when they're coming, they don't know how they're coming, they're just coming because they're a good business and they're good relationship people, but they don't have a process. So, yeah,
yeah. To your point, those people, things happen and they don't know why.
yeah,
Um, and so you know, it's almost like a rain dance. Maybe you're in Australia. I don't know. Native
yeah.
Americans here
But
had, you're
I'm
familiar,
familiar
right?
with the term. Yep.
Yeah. And so it's like, we got clients last time when we did X, Y, and Z, which is the equivalent of a rain dance, right? Even though whatever they did, the dance never really brought the rain. It was, the rain came. And people do things and they think, okay, because we did this is what generates referrals. And then when it doesn't happen, it's like something is broken, right? With the Native Americans, it was, okay, what's broken is we've made the gods angry. We need to sacrifice something or someone to the
Mm,
gods. And people in business are, well, networking events don't work anymore, or whatever it is, LinkedIn ads don't work anymore, or whatever it might be, and not realizing that there's an underlying relationship component that really uh, drove the business, drove the referral, and
mm,
it's you know they're not doing it anymore, or
yeah,
it doesn't always work perfectly.
yeah, yeah. And I think with AI is an interesting one because AI is now the new fad, and now everybody's going, well, I can do a lot of content vomit
Yep.
on the marketplace with AI, and then I can do a whole lot of cold outreach 24/7 with AI. Well, if everybody can do that, that's just making the market even more noisier and making cold outreach even less effective. I mean, yeah, it will always work. It's still, well, the assumption is it will always work, but it works just less effectively because the conversion rates go down and people shut down and their filters are, they're filtering everything out. So that's where, what you do in and around AmSpirit and Networking Hub is so valuable in sort of shining a light on how does an individual business owner and individual sales representative actually take control of their own outbound activity which creates inbound referrals. Coming back to your XYZ, referrals come in, but people are not, the business owners or the sales execs are not focusing on what exactly is X, what exactly is Y, and what is actually Z that generated that referral. Because when I can focus on that, now I can tweak and refine it, and I can then implement it consistently because I know what that formula is, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned the whole notion of AI. I had somebody reach out to me and say, "Yeah, I'm building this. I've got this AI thing, and it'll just, it's going to automate what you do, your social outreach, and blah 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 blah." And well, you've gotten to know me. I'm kind of a snarky person, so my response was, "Oh, that's really cool because I'm building an AI program to block all that stuff for people," which is entirely
Yeah.
possible, right? It's totally
Oh,
possible.
well, if LinkedIn is not doing that right now, then LinkedIn's platform's under threat, right?
Yeah,
Because nobody wants to do anything anymore. Therefore, they want their AI to do it. So you get all of these bot comments coming into your posts. Well, it's not genuine activity, right?
yeah,
And that's a problem for LinkedIn. So I would imagine they're pulling their hair out at the moment, trying to stop people creating fake profiles and then going and spamming the daylights out of comments with those profiles. So I've got a I've got a zero tolerance for level two people who are bot commenting on my LinkedIn. I just automatically block delete the comment where it's if there's any level of doubt from level two people, it's just like, yeah, block gone, you're out.
yeah,
With my level one connections, and I did this recently, a guy that I know and respect, but and I know him personally, but all of a sudden, never heard from him for 10 years, and then all of a sudden he's commenting on every comment or post that I do with people from industries that are completely irrelevant to him. So I just went, please explain, hey, what are you doing with this bot? If you don't respond to me within 24 hours and you don't stop it, I'm deleting you from my network. Didn't hear from him. Bang, delete, gone, you're gone. Because it's your personal brand that's then tied to these bots, right? It's
yeah.
so so yeah, I've got a one strike you're out for my
Yeah,
level one connections and a zero tolerance for level two.
yeah, I don't blame you. I get people reaching out to me on LinkedIn, and other but LinkedIn is the profile, is the adult table, right? It's not the kids table at the holidays, right?
Mm,
LinkedIn's where the adults sit. And yeah, I get people reaching out, and it's I'll respond, and I don't hear anything. Especially something might intrigue me. It's like, okay, they're not really there. They're not, or they'll ask a question like, "Hey, have you ever thought about having a podcast, Frank?" Well, if anybody looked at my profile, they would see that I list my podcast on there.
and you
Pretty
got
prom.
hundreds and hundreds of episodes. You've been doing it for years.
Yeah, you don't have to do much research to see that I have a podcast. You don't have to do much research to see that I've written books. And so, why are you asking me these things? And they're just not. They're just looking at one little thing. Okay, this guy used to be an attorney, or this guy's designated as a coach or a consultant. So we're just gonna start firing this stuff out, and
Yeah.
maybe it works well enough for them to continue it. I don't know.
Well, I guess that the challenge is it's just happening in the background, and if they're automating everything, it's just happening in the background. And yeah, I mean, you sift enough sand, and maybe you find a grain of gold when you're out panning, right?
Right.
But you got to do a lot of sifting.
Yeah.
Whereas, with what you advocate for and what we do, it's like, well, hang on, I know exactly who I want to connect with because I've profiled them very clearly. I've got a very clear value proposition, and then you don't approach them in this mass market spammy way. You've got a very deliberate process of engagement, and then all of a sudden, and you're coming through connections more often than not, then the speed of trust is just so much faster. Your speed of engagement so much faster. The quality of the people that you're talking to in the conversations are just so much higher, and
Yeah.
therefore you're doing better business. Now, that obviously different strategy if your product is a swipe your credit card, buy the pair of shoes type business online. But anytime a salesperson has to have a sales conversation with a real human to get to a result, then I think what we're seeing is a massive shift back to the old way of engaging with people, this
Yeah.
trust economy. I heard an interesting comment on a podcast from Jenna Kutcher yesterday, and it was she was referring to the current um, culture, and particularly in business, is the trust recession because everyone's getting hounded by scammers, by phone, by email,
Yeah.
by fake profiles. So there's a real trust deficit, and I tend to agree with that. And I think it's getting bigger, right? That
Yeah.
trust gap, and this is where the trust economy is the other side of things. There's a lot of partner networking people, particularly in enterprise, talking about the trust economy and running partnerships. So there's a lot of activity going on in the enterprise space around this. But I think SMB, SME, who are in the perfect position to actually benefit from this current trend, are still playing a little bit of catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd be
I love.
interested to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I love the term trust recession. I had not heard that. That's and maybe you just heard it as well. But there's a lot of truth to it because when I get messages, you used to get messages on LinkedIn. It's like, oh boy, it's like Christmas morning. I've got a message, and now it's
Hmm.
like, oh boy, you know, what's this,
Yeah.
and you feel compelled that you have to read them all, or at least skim them all, because there are still decent people out there doing decent things and having a decent approach. So you need to
Hmm.
read enough to know that, okay, this is, using your metaphor, this is not sand. This is the little piece of gold,
Yeah.
or potentially has gold. There's gold on the horizon with respect to this, but um, yeah, no, God, I love that term, trust recession,
Hmm.
because that's absolutely what's going on.
Yeah.
I had another
The,
thought too. I totally lost it.
but the flip side of that is, when you get into communities like you've developed with Network Hub and like you've developed with um, AmSpirit, it's the antidote to that trust recession because the communities that you build, and I use this as an example because anybody can do it. Like if I can do it, anybody can do it, right?
Yeah,
Um, is is the fact that you then build communities and relationships and networks where you're the complete opposite of trust recession. You're like trust abundance, and therefore everything just happens faster, easier, right? So being part of your network hub, the way last week, that introduced me to a lot of great people. But as a result of the quality of the networks that you've built around you and that other people can build around them in their area of expertise, the connections I made from Network Hub last week were really high quality. And because you become the influencer that creates the space for those conversations to happen, I've had 4 meetings in the past week as a result of that, but not just any meetings, quality meetings, not meetings for the sake of meetings. It's like, really high quality engagement because you become the center of influence that brings good people together, therefore they can collaborate faster.
yeah. No, I totally get it. When I was on the call this morning out of Estonia, with Marlies Vaher and Terry Bean, we were talking towards the tail end. What is what Following on what's the antidote to this? And the metaphor I used early on in that program was the reason people are doing all this cold outreach is they feel like a kid in the candy store, and there's all these great people and they need to touch everybody. And it's like, well, you don't need to touch everybody to make money. You need to pick the candy that's right for you and find the candies that's right for you. So, we talked towards the end, and I said, my saying is that less is more. Less
Mm.
outreach is more outreach. And I've not so much anymore, but I would talk to people during the lockdown, like, I can't talk long. I got 12 more calls today. It's like, oh my God, 12 calls in a day. I mean, that might be a month for me. I can't keep it all straight, but people will do that. They'll go to, 6 different online networking meetings in a week, and just, continually beating and beating and beating on this networking thing, going very wide and not very deep. Less is more, have
Yeah.
less conversations. And
Yeah.
before we hit record, you were mentioning that you had a busy week last week, and now you're kind of like, all right, this is a catch-up week. I'm going to intentionally not do as much, which is powerful.
Yeah. Well, and probably not that. Let me redirect that a little bit. Yeah. Coming back to your point, more is less. I've got a 2025 mantra of more of less,
Oh, okay.
meaning the 80-20 rule, right? So I've got to do more. I've got to do more with less things. Like, what are the things that are moving the needle? And to your point, I had a really busy meeting week last week. And back to your point around people being hyperactive in networking. I was hyperactive last week in making new connections, going to new events. But if I don't stop and pause to actually go back and build the foundations of those relationships and then follow up on the gold and actually execute on the next thing that moves that relationship forward, that either gets me to more connections or results in a partnership or a collaboration or a new client, then all I'm doing is stoking top of funnel and not going through and moving people through the engagement process to actually get to a referral partnership or get to a new client deal. So I think people, and I'm going to jump around a little bit here because you spoke about the advertising marketing, and I think that industry, they have an agenda that they've got to be promoting the next new thing because they need the next new shiny thing to get attention, and therefore
Right.
they're diverting our attention to focus up here, whereas having a deliberate strategy around your networking gets you focusing in 2 areas. You've got two pillars instead of just relying on one, which is typically fad marketing, which even if you get it right, it lasts a while, and that while is not too long typically, and then the effectiveness of that campaign drops off, and then you've got to go find the new butterfly, go chase the new campaign. Whereas your networking and your particularly referral partnerships, because we break networking up. We've got 5 key pillars, and at the center of that pillar is ideal profiles, which we categorize them into 4. And I'm getting very long-winded here, and I apologize.
No, it's okay.
But coming back to you know coming back to these serial networkers, I'm going to tie this all together, hopefully. When you go out and find an ideal customer and you're not you focus on them, that's a one-to-one referral if you can get customers to refer. When you get referral partners to refer, that we refer to that as a one-to-more strategy, because you've got a central relationship who has lots of your ideal customers, and I know you know all of this. But because they're working with your ideal customers all the time, they've already got a strong relationship with a network of them. They can refer more clients to you more often, right? So we always encourage our members and users and clients to focus on partnerships first, because the referrals will come, and then you obviously have a customer referral strategy. But customers, we tend to find, are are less consistent and less reliable. That's where you get this ad hoc lead generation. And then affiliates and partners, ideal affiliates and ideal centers of influence is something I won't sort of go into today, but they are a one-to-many strategy. So, in my world and in you're an influencer within my ideal client base, and now we're having a conversation and you're enabling that conversation to go out to many people. But back to the habitual networkers and being deliberate and following up, to your point, they're going to a networking event, and then they're going to a networking event, and then going to a networking event, and then they're going to a networking event, and they make a very thin thread connection, or they might actually make a really strong connection in that moment, but then they don't have a follow-up process. And therefore, if they're relying on the other person to follow up, the other person's busy, distracted, and not following up. So I find that even people in networking events that go, I love what you do, like, we really need to get together, we really need to connect. I put all my details in there and I see who connects with me, because that's the first filter. Do they follow up? Most people don't. And then I will pull out the one or two people that you go, that person looks really interesting. Back to your point, go and do the research, have a look at their profile and go, right, if they don't follow me up, I'm definitely following that person up. And it's then that it's on us going into a networking event that if we find the right person, we only need to follow up with one or two per networking event of the right people, and we're going to get massive results. But to your point, people are just going to 6, 7, 8 networking events a week, feeling busy and being super active, but not being effective because they don't have their messaging right, they don't have their system and formula and follow-up process bedded down, therefore they're not getting the results out of their efforts.
I totally agree. Let's shift gears. Talk with us a little bit about, I know you have been somewhat, referral marketing ideas and referit.ai. If you could share some information on those, how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah. I'll do the how to get a hold of me at the end. But yeah, look, because we've been doing, myself and Mike Beachy have been mates, friends for 25 odd years, and we've worked in different industries from financial services to technology, etc. And all those times we've had to rely on referral marketing as our primary source of new business. And out of that, we saw challenges in how people were executing on referrals and following up. So Mike went and built Referit as a piece of technology. And then we both knew from our technology experience, technology doesn't sell itself from a features perspective. So I created the referral marketing formula, which was a way of having a conversation about referral marketing as a step-by-step framework, which people could DIY into their process or into their business. And then we created the referral marketing formula. But if you wanted to turnkey the process, we had the technology that you could plug and play with a free product that you could plug and play into your referral marketing process to turnkey the engagement follow-up, and more importantly, building referral partnerships. So that's a very long story cut short. And then, if you want to connect with me, Frank, I'll give you a link that you can drop in the show notes if you'd like access to Referit. But also on LinkedIn, you can just search for referral marketing ideas or Derek Morgan. Both of those should lead you straight to me.
Sounds great. I really appreciate your time today. You're an early riser, so 6 a.m. is not horrible for you, but still it's an extra effort that a lot of people wouldn't do. So I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate the space and giving me the opportunity to have the conversation, Frank. And yeah, love what you're doing there with Networking Hub and AmSpirit.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.